An 84-year-old homeless veteran enters a courtroom no one expects to notice. Every eye in the room drifts toward him. His secret, buried for decades, is about to erupt, and it will shake the very foundations of the trial. When Judge Caprio finally hears it, even he is left utterly speechless. Today's story isn't about money, nor is it about fame. It's about a man society forgot, a veteran whose life was spent serving a country that barely remembered his name. Harold Jennings walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, carrying only the remnants of a life lived in silence. Tattered letters, fading photographs, and a medal that whispers of heroism. Across the room sits Brandon Carlisle, a young millionaire used to bending the law to his will. But as Harold opens his mouth, the room grows silent, as if holding its breath, sensing that something monumental is about to unfold. This is the moment where humility and privilege collide, and the outcome is anything but predictable. But what happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. Harold Jennings moves forward slowly, each step a testament to decades of hardship. His coat is worn, patched at the elbows, and smells faintly of the streets he's called home. Yet in his eyes lies a fire no one in the courtroom is ready for. His hands shake slightly, but he grips a worn leather satchel tightly, the one item that carries his history, his proof, his dignity. Brandon Carlisle barely spares him a glance. Dressed head to toe in tailored Gucci, he radiates wealth and confidence. His gold watch glints under the courtroom lights, a silent declaration that money can buy influence, if not respect. "This old man doesn't belong here," Brandon mutters to his lawyer, voice dripping with entitlement. "He's a distraction." Harold sets the satchel on the table before him. The small thud echoes louder than any voice could. Slowly, deliberately, he opens it. Inside are photographs, yellowed letters, and a military medal, proof of a life of service and sacrifice. The courtroom stirs. No one expected this. Judge Frank Caprio leans forward, eyebrows raised. "Mr. Jennings," he says gently, "please, tell us why you're here." Harold straightens, chest trembling with emotion. "I served my country in ways people only read about in history books. I've slept in alleyways, begged for food, watched friends die, and somehow survived. Today, I'm here because this man," he gestures to Brandon, "tried to take away what little justice I have left, and I will not let it happen." A ripple of murmurs sweeps through the room. Brandon scoffs, brushing imaginary lint off his suit jacket. "This is ridiculous. This man has nothing to stand on. It's laughable," he says, tone sharp and dismissive. Harold reaches into his satchel again, pulling out a stack of documents tied with a faded ribbon. Letters from fellow veterans, commendations long ignored, and photographs showing a young Harold in uniform, brave and proud, alongside fallen comrades. Each piece tells a story Brandon's money can't erase. Judge Caprio's voice cuts through the whispers. "Everyone deserves a fair hearing. Let Mr. Jennings present his case." Harold nods, hands shaking slightly, and begins to lay out his story. He recounts nights sleeping under bridges, mornings searching for food, and decades of being overlooked by the very systems meant to protect him. His voice cracks at times, yet it holds a sincerity and strength that silences even Brandon. Rhetorical question moment. How could someone who gave everything to his country be treated like he doesn't exist? The courtroom leans in as Harold pulls out the final item, a small folded note written by his late commanding officer, praising Harold's bravery and integrity. It's a silent accusation against the indifference he's faced, a whisper that he was never forgotten by those who mattered most. The murmurs grow louder. Even the bailiffs glance at each other, stunned. Brandon's confident smirk falters, replaced by a flash of uncertainty. This is not the weak, trembling man he assumed would be an easy target. Harold closes his satchel slowly, his gaze unwavering. "I may be homeless, I may be old, but I am not invisible, and today I will prove that truth and justice cannot be bought." A tense silence fills the room. Even Judge Caprio leans back, absorbing the weight of the moment. The stage is set, the players defined, and the first blow in this battle has already been struck. Drop a comment below if you think Harold's courage will be enough to take on Brandon Carlisle. But what the court would uncover next would shock everyone far beyond what anyone could imagine. The courtroom holds its breath as Harold reaches into his satchel once more. This time, he produces a thin envelope, edges worn, clearly carried with care for decades. Inside are documents, notarized statements, and photographs that make the whispers in the room grow louder. These aren't just memories, they are proof. Evidence that could completely dismantle Brandon Carlisle's claim. Brandon's lawyer rises quickly, trying to object, but Judge Caprio's calm voice stops him. "Let Mr. Jennings present his evidence," he says, firm yet fair. The young lawyer grits his teeth, realizing that wealth alone will not intimidate this courtroom today. Harold lays out each piece carefully. A photograph of him receiving his military medal, letters from commanding officers praising his service, and documents showing that a property Brandon is now claiming ownership of was once promised to veterans in Harold's unit decades ago. Every page tells a story, every image a reminder of sacrifice. The crowd begins to murmur again. How could a man with nothing, living on the streets for decades, hold such weighty proof? It challenges everything they assumed about power, privilege, and who deserves respect. Harold's voice rises slightly, gaining strength with each word. These are not just pieces of paper. These are the lives and promises that were ignored. This is what I fought for. This is what I stand for. Brandon's confidence starts to crack. He leans back in his chair, eyes darting, clearly unsettled by the mounting evidence. He had assumed Harold would be an easy target, a man too old and frail to challenge him. But each piece Harold reveals erodes that illusion. The courtroom watches in awe as Harold presents a video testimonial from a fellow veteran, someone who remembers the promises made long ago. The man's voice is steady, recounting the agreement to allocate certain properties to soldiers returning from service. Every word feels like a thunderclap, echoing through the room, exposing Brandon's attempt to rewrite history. Rhetorical question moment. Can years of wealth and entitlement ever outweigh decades of honor and sacrifice? Brandon attempts to interrupt, but Judge Caprio's gaze is unwavering. "Please, let the evidence speak for itself," he instructs. Shh! Tension is palpable. Every eye is fixed on Harold, every ear tuned to his words. As Harold finishes, he places the final photograph on the table, a black and white image of himself, standing beside a fallen comrade, holding the same medal he now carries. The image captures bravery, loss, and integrity all in one frame. The courtroom falls into stunned silence. Even the judge's usually composed expression shows a flicker of amazement. Just when everyone thought they had seen it all, Harold reaches into his satchel one last time, and the item he pulls out leaves the entire courtroom frozen in disbelief. Drop a comment below if you think this evidence will finally turn the tide in Harold's favor. Harold slowly unfolds a small, brittle piece of paper. It's a handwritten letter from a high-ranking military officer, decades old, addressed directly to him. Every word drips with respect, gratitude, and recognition of his bravery. "You are a man who has given everything without asking for anything in return," it reads. "Your courage and sacrifice are remembered, even if the world forgets." The courtroom is silent, the weight of decades of struggle, hardship, and invisibility says down on everyone present. Even Brandon Carlisle looks momentarily shaken, his carefully constructed armor of arrogance beginning to crack. He leans back, attempting to mask the unease, but it's obvious. Wealth and privilege mean nothing in the face of true honor. Harold's voice, steady now with a mix of anger and pride, continues. "I have lived without a home, without recognition, without comfort, but I never stopped believing that truth would outlast lies. Today, that moment is here." His eyes meet Brandon's squarely, and for the first time, the young millionaire seems genuinely unsettled. Rhetorical question moment. How could anyone dismiss a lifetime of service, a life built on sacrifice, with a single arrogant claim? A woman from the audience rises, tears in her eyes. She speaks softly but with conviction. "I knew Harold years ago," she says. "He saved my brother in combat. He never bragged, never asked for thanks. He is the truest kind of hero." Her words hang in the air, a powerful reminder that history is lived in the actions of people, not in their bank accounts. Judge Caprio leans forward, listening intently. Harold's story has shifted the energy in the courtroom. Entirely. The narrative that Brandon tried to control has been rewritten in real time by truth, honor, and resilience. Every word, every letter, every photograph now builds an undeniable case. Harold Jennings deserves justice. Harold glances at the judge and, almost as an afterthought, says, "And the truth is, this isn't just about me. It's about all of us who are forgotten, overlooked, or underestimated. The words resonate far beyond the room, touching something deep in everyone present. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in justice and honor, a narrator might add here. Because in this moment, Harold has become more than a man. He is a symbol. A reminder that courage outlasts arrogance, and that sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truths. The courtroom holds its collective breath as Brandon fumbles with papers, searching desperately for a rebuttal, any shred of evidence to counter the storm Harold has unleashed. But the truth, as it often does, cannot be silenced. Just as it seems Harold's story has reached its peak, Judge Caprio rises, his voice calm but filled with power, preparing to deliver words that no one will ever forget. Judge Frank Caprio Adju steers his glasses, the courtroom falling instantly silent at the sound of his voice. Today, he begins, we are not merely deciding a case of property or ownership. Today, we are reminded of the very meaning of justice and the responsibilities we carry to honor those who have served and sacrificed. The judge's eyes sweep the room, resting on Harold for a moment longer than necessary, acknowledging decades of struggle, courage, and dignity. Mr. Jennings, he continues, your life is a testament to integrity, bravery, and resilience. You have faced hardships most of us cannot imagine, and yet you stand here with your head held high, demanding only what is rightfully yours. Brandon Carlyle shifts uncomfortably, the young millionaire's smug confidence now clearly shaken. It is all too easy to think that wealth and power grant immunity, Judge Caprio states, voice firm but measured. But real power, he says, emphasizing each word, lies in truth, honor, and the courage to stand for what is right, even when the world has long ignored you. Rhetorical question, moment. How can someone ignore a lifetime of service, a record of sacrifice, and the undeniable truth simply because they are inconvenient to the powerful? The courtroom leans in. Judge Caprio's words hit like lightning, illuminating the moral compass everyone had momentarily forgotten. He pauses, letting the weight of his judgment settle. The law is not a tool to be wielded by those with money or influence. It is a shield for the vulnerable, a voice for the unheard, and a reminder that justice must never be swayed by arrogance or entitlement. Harold's hands tremble slightly as he clutches his satchel, tears brimming in his eyes. Judge Caprio's voice softens, but remains piercing. Mr. Carlyle, this courtroom exists not to protect privilege, but to uphold fairness. Your attempts to dismiss decades of honor and sacrifice have failed, not because of anyone's strength, but because truth has its own power. The young man's face pales. He opens his mouth to respond, but no words can counter the moral clarity now filling the room. Judge Caprio's voice rises once more, echoing through the silent courtroom. Let this case be a lesson to us all. Justice is blind, but it is never powerless. Those who serve, who sacrifice, and who endure deserve our respect and our protection. And today, that principle has been proven without question. A hush lingers. Even the attorneys, the bailiffs, and the spectators cannot deny the magnitude of what has just been spoken. Judge Caprio has reframed the narrative entirely, elevating Harold's story from personal struggle to a universal lesson of integrity, morality, and honor. But the courtroom is not yet finished reacting. What happens next is a moment of full redemption, tears, and an ending no one expected. Drop a comment below if you think justice has finally been served. The courtroom is heavy with silence as Harold takes a deep breath. Then, slowly, he reaches into his satchel one final time. From within, he pulls out a small, polished wooden box. Inside lies a folded American flag, worn but immaculate, a symbol of his service and sacrifices that Brandon Carlyle could never understand. The room collectively exhales, the weight of decades of hardship and honor filling every corner. Judge Caprio's eyes glisten slightly, and even Brandon's jaw tightens, a mixture of guilt and awe flashing across his face. Harold speaks, voice steady and proud. This flag, these letters, this medal, they are reminders of my life's work, my service, and my sacrifices. And while some may have tried to ignore me, I am here to remind everyone that truth and honor cannot be bought or buried. Rhetorical question moment. Isn't it remarkable how the smallest acts of courage can echo louder than the wealth of an entire empire? The audience begins to stir. Tears quietly stream down faces, Whispers of admiration ripple through the room, and Harold's fellow veterans in attendance stand, clapping softly but resolutely. Even Brandon, humbled and shaken, can no longer maintain his arrogance. The young millionaire lowers his eyes, realizing that his money and influence are meaningless against the integrity Harold embodies. Judge Caprio leans forward, delivering a verdict not only in law but in moral clarity. Mr. Jennings, justice will be served toda. Your courage, your sacrifice, and your unwavering truth have reminded us all what it means to stand for what is right. May this courtroom, and those who witness it, never forget the lesson you have taught. Harold's shoulders slump in relief, tears finally rolling freely. The courtroom erupts softly, not in chaos, but in heartfelt applause. He has won not only the case, but the recognition he has deserved for decades. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in heroes who stand tall despite the odds, the narrator might say, because Harold has become more than a man. He is a symbol of justice, resilience, and the power of truth over entitlement. The courtroom continues to buzz as Brandon offers a quiet, sincere apology, a gesture of humility unthinkable at the start of the trial. Harold nods, accepting the acknowledgement without bitterness, embodying the grace that has carried him through a lifetime of hardship. The satchel is closed, the medal, letters and flag carefully tucked away once more. Harold exits the courtroom slowly, head high, a man finally seen, finally recognized, finally honored. And as the doors close behind him, the story of the homeless veteran who stunned an entire courtroom spreads beyond these walls, destined to touch hearts far and wide. Drop a comment below if Harold's courage inspired you. Like this video if you believe in justice. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that integrity always triumphs.